It's Wednesday on Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Happy to be back for another day. Hope you guys are having a good one out there as well. Happy Caitlin Clark in Minneapolis Day to those who celebrate. If you've been looking forward to Gophers versus Iowa at Williams Arena, that game has finally arrived tonight. We'll have plenty of thoughts on that tomorrow after the game happens on tomorrow's show. So look forward to that. Lots of good stuff coming up on today's show as well. Phil Miller from the Star Tribune joins me here in just a little bit to talk Twins. Byron Buxton making his spring debut in center field on Tuesday. First time he's been in center field for the Twins in about a year and a half, 554 days. So Phil and I will get into that, talk to him after yesterday's game, talked about how happy Byron Buxton seems in spring training this year and how much of a difference that makes for the Twins. Have some Wolves and Wild thoughts at the end of the show as well. Both those teams played Tuesday night and kind of continued what they've been doing all season long. Wolves winning, Wild disappointing in this game, kind of an up and down year for them, but they were 3-2 losers to Carolina last night. We'll get into that at the end of the show as well. First, though, what I miss, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell talked at the scouting combine on Tuesday. Newsy-ish delivery from both of them, talking about Justin Jefferson, talking about Kirk Cousins, talking about a lot of stuff. A lot of the big decisions that they have this offseason were addressed. I'm trying to understand something here. What exactly has changed for the Vikings that they are now presenting this kind of unified message about, we know what we have in Kirk Cousins, we want him back? What exactly has changed? So first off, here's Kevin O'Connell talking about Kirk Cousins at the scouting combine on Tuesday.
Kirk was a huge reason why I thought so highly, amongst a lot of things, about the Minnesota Vikings opportunity. Because of my belief in him, we've won a lot of games over these 2 years with Kirk as our quarterback, and I thought he was playing as well as anybody in the National Football League when he got hurt after beating the Packers at Lambeau last year. You know, coming off a Monday night win over the team that represented the NFC in the Super Bowl, and to have that happen was, it was a big deal for me personally, and much beyond just my role of coaching the team. But it's been awesome to see him through his rehab and where he's at now, really get right back up on his feet and attack this thing. But my feelings on Kirk Cousins, they really have not wavered in 2 years, and if anything, they're stronger now, having gone through a lot of adversity together. But we've had a lot of success as well.
Definitely natural for a head coach to praise his quarterback, certainly one who's worked with Kirk Cousins for so long, things like that. Here's the thing I'm having a hard time understanding as they go into negotiations, a very important next 2 weeks before Cousins can become a free agent, something the Vikings allowed to happen because last year they could not agree on a long-term contract terms with Kirk Cousins. What has changed? So last year at this time, they're trying to negotiate a deal with Cousins. They end up just adding 2 void years to his deal. They could have had Kirk Cousins for 3 years last year, right? That's what Ben Gessling reported. That's what we've been reporting all along, that basically the sticking point was they only wanted to do guaranteed money for 2023 and 2024 at that point, right? That was kind of the sticking point. So instead they just go into 2023 and they give Kirk Cousins those void years, which basically means pushing this dead money out, but making him a free agent after the 2023 season. So what happens in 2023? Cousins plays 8 games. They go 4-4. He's playing well towards the end of that 4-4 stretch. They beat the 49ers. They beat the Packers, things like that. But he gets hurt at Lambeau Field. He hurts his Achilles, tears his Achilles, out for the season. So right now, they're 4-4 with Kirk Cousins. Now, the revisionist history seems to be that Kirk Cousins had a great year last year. Kirk Cousins started the year 1-4 with the Vikings, had 7 turnovers in those first 5 games. Not all of that was his fault, of course. It's never all his fault, which is fair, but I just don't understand what exactly changed along the way to make them now say, we want him back. We're pretty sure we're going to do this. We want him back. We know Kirk Cousins. We know who he is. We think he wants to be back. I didn't see enough last year, honestly, to make me think that you want to do multiple years of Kirk Cousins again. If they wanted to do that, they could have done that last year, coming off a 13-4 season, by the way. They could have done that coming off a 13-4 season, and they didn't. So I'm still waiting to see what the explanation is. I'm still waiting to see exactly what they do here, whether it matches what they're saying at the combine. But they definitely came into Indianapolis with a sort of unified message, both Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah talking about Kirk Cousins and how they want him back. And I'm just struggling at this point to see how much changed in the last year. Did they get scared because they saw what happens when you don't have veteran quarterback play, when you have to play Dobbs, when you have to play Nick Mullins, when you had to play Jaron Hall? Maybe that's part of it. But I don't think Kirk Cousins last year did enough to say, this is absolutely your guy going forward. And now, by the way, he's a year older, coming off an Achilles injury. He's been here for 6 years, 2 playoff appearances, 1 playoff win. I'm not a Kirk Cousins hater. I think he's a good quarterback. I am just of the mind that A, I think it's time to move on, and B, if you wanted to sign Kirk Cousins, you would have signed Kirk Cousins already. That's the point I want to make. If you wanted to sign him, you would have done it last year. I don't get what's different this year. Now, that wasn't the only subject they tackled at the Combine. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah also saying the thought of trading Justin Jefferson has never once crossed his mind. I'm glad. Good. Let's put that silly rumor or rumbling to bed, right? Because the thought has crossed my mind, and I've thought about it enough. I've been like, okay, what if they did trade Justin Jefferson? What kind of haul could you get for Justin Jefferson? Enough people have asked that question, kind of wondered. Every time you go down that road, you come to the same dead end, which is this. Nothing you get back for him will guarantee you anywhere near the value that you can get for that Justin Jefferson brings to your team right now. Even if you could include him as part of a package that gets you into a top 3 conversation for a quarterback this year, things like that. There are no guarantees. The guarantee you have with Justin Jefferson is he is the best non-quarterback offensive player in the NFL right now. I know he was hurt last year. That's a fluke, right? That was the first time he's been injured in his Vikings career. He is the best non-quarterback in the NFL, at least on offense. That is not someone you want to trade. I'm glad they are unified in that message, that they're coming out and saying, we have no intention. There's never even thought about this. This is a guy who's, a great player who we want to sign to a long-term contract. So I'm glad they are unified on that. Now, where it gets a little tricky, and I will acknowledge this, is that I think Justin Jefferson, and he said this already, he wants Kirk Cousins as his quarterback. They are not willing to say that he is going to be the quarterback. They're not willing to say that to him. Now, this is going to be solved. This is going to be resolved. The quarterback's going to be resolved before any kind of extension, I would imagine, is signed and agreed to. But they're kind of in a tricky spot where they know what his preference is. It might not work out that way. I hope, though, that they're not thinking about Kirk Cousins in this way because they feel like they have to appease Justin Jefferson. I hope they are making a football decision and nothing more than that. So that's the curious piece to me. What is motivating what they're saying at the Combine? What else is going to come out of this? What more can they do this offseason to show kind of what direction they're going to go? I don't know. It's an interesting time. The bottom line for me is what has changed about Kirk Cousins. I can't figure that out. I need help. I need help figuring that out. I don't understand what exactly about their thinking could have changed about him where now they would give him a multi-year extension with guaranteed money. What about that has changed? That, to me, is the question they need to answer at some point.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone, caught! Touchdown! No!
Tortured Vikings fans will remember that call. Paul Allen, KFAN, Josh McCown throwing to Nate Poole. Final play of the 2003 regular season, knocking the Vikings out of the playoffs. That was a very special, very special piece of terribleness from the Vikings that year. They started the year 6-0, lost to all the worst teams in the NFL, and then lost to the Cardinals when the Cardinals scored on 4th and forever with McCown throwing to Poole. Nate Poole got like the keys to the city. He's the one you remember the most, right? Nate Poole's the name you remember the most, but Josh McCown was the quarterback for the Cardinals that threw that pass. Josh McCown is now the Vikings quarterback coach. They announced that on Tuesday. Josh McCown, the guy who broke their hearts in 2003, is now their quarterback's coach. I can't decide if this is tempting fate, if it's a huge flex, if it doesn't matter. I don't know what it is, but 21 years later, he is the guy who is going to be molding and shaping whoever is at quarterback for the Vikings in 2024 and beyond. So that, to me, was just kind of a fun little piece that also came out of Tuesday. Josh McCown to Nate Poole, and a moment that will live in infamy, a season that will live in infamy for the Vikings. Started 6-0, finished 9-7, lost to all the worst teams, including the Cardinals, on the final play of that season.
Grand Casino would like to take a moment and salute the true football fan. The passion, the hope, the anticipation, that incomparable feeling of winning. Grand Casino would also like to take a moment to remind you that you can find all that anticipation, thrill, and winning at Grand Casino. Grand Casino. Let your story begin.
Let's talk Twins today with Star Tribune beat writer Phil Miller down in Florida. Mostly I want to talk Byron Buxton, Phil, because on Tuesday, as you pointed out, the first time in, I think, 554 days that he was back in center field for the Twins. That's like a year and a half. That is a long time for someone so good at that position to be away from it. What has this been like for him, and what did it feel like for him to be back out there on Tuesday?
Yeah, you can tell he's conflicted about the whole thing because it strikes everyone as so important. Byron is back. He's going to play center field. But as he keeps saying, it's spring training. These games don't count. He said he wasn't nervous about it, but he's pretty sure he will be when it's a real game. He just looks at it as, an extension of practice. But you could not miss that dynamic in the ballpark today. You got a big hand when he was when the lineups were announced. A Twins videographer ran out to his position with him and was circling him, taking video while he was warming up just before the first pitch, which he found a little disconcerting. Actually, he was so funny today. He said, I had to make sure I beat the kid out to center field because it looks bad if you
right.
if he beats you. But it was a big deal whether he wants to admit it or not. It's a lot better team when he's in center field, and you could sense that his teammates feel that, the fans felt that. It was only one day, but he was the focus of everything today.
And we forget that, right, a little bit, because he was a little bit out of sight, out of mind for some of last year because they were doing a lot of their damage in the second half of the year when he wasn't in the lineup. And before that, he had a few stretches where he was hitting well as a DH, but he had tailed off to the point where he finished, under 210, down close to 200 last year. But it's unfortunate, almost unfair that he almost became a punchline to a certain degree, like, oh, Byron Buxton, yeah, is he ever going to do this? Is he ever going to do that? You forget about how great he can be when he's healthy because he just hasn't had that opportunity that much lately. So, yeah, it is a big deal to them. How much better are they simply with the prospect of him being out there?
Well, certainly their defense gets a lot better. That goes without saying. There's such a big emphasis this year on the mental side of the game. That the Twins have 3 sports psychologists on staff now, and they have pretty regular meetings. And the truth is, happy players play better. And Buxton has admitted the game's not fun when my entire role is to get 3 or 4 at-bats and I'm sitting around watching the game and I can't watch it and I've got to go inside and I try to keep busy and it just wasn't fun. It is a lot more fun to play the field, to live up to the challenge of that. So he thinks, and I think the Twins are pretty convinced that not only will he improve their defense, but he will improve their offense too, because he's going to be much more engaged. I can tell you, his mood, his demeanor, his happiness, his joy is so evident in camp. We've all been talking about it, how much of a difference a happy Byron Buxton makes. He's doing all the drills. He is acting like a rookie. He told me yesterday that it used to be when I was young, I'd stand out in the outfield and think, why are we doing all these dumb drills? And now he feels like, hey, we get to go out and run around and catch fly balls today.
That's great. And it feels like, it didn't seem like it was this terribly complicated procedure, right? But he described it basically as It's kind of night and day. All of a sudden, the pain in his knee is gone, and maybe whether it's that or being able to be out there for all of these things, and obviously those things are connected. But how much do you think is just the feeling of not being in pain anymore that's driving this good mood?
Yeah, that's it was. I'm not a doctor, so
No.
take my diagnosis for what it's worth. But he said that they thought they had repaired the knee, and then there were little flaps of skin or tendon or something that were interfering with the knee. And yeah, he said night and day when that was taken care of, he can move around again. He said there was a long time where I'd get up in the morning and it would kind of hurt to walk, and so that part of it is pretty exciting for him. He has said it reminds him of when he was young, when he was a teenager in his 20s, and could do amazing things. He definitely feels like those amazing things are ahead again.
He told you, I think Monday, that he hoped he dropped a fly ball, and that was interesting. He said he was, getting into the game Tuesday. He hoped he dropped a fly ball. Didn't sound like that was an opportunity, but what was his day like on Tuesday?
Yeah, he said he hoped he would drop a fly ball because he said it focuses you. That focuses you. If I drop a fly ball, I can guarantee you that won't happen again this year. And so he was looking for that for focus, to get over the spring training isn't real kind of feeling. He played 4 innings in the outfield today. He went 0 for 2 at the plate. He didn't have any fly balls hit to him that he could drop. There was a 2-out RBI double by the Phillies shortstop Trey Turner that was in the gap. Got it. Probably bounced just short of the warning track, but he really didn't have much of a chance at it. We thought, but we asked him about him after the game, and he said, "Yeah, it occurred to me that old Byron might have had a shot at that, might have tried to get that, but he said, I'm not going to dive in spring training. I'd have gotten in trouble if I had tried to dive to make that catch. In the regular season," he said, you get a good jump, you get a good beat on the ball, maybe it's catchable. Other than that, it was a pretty uneventful day for him, other than just the fact that he was out there doing what he does best.
Final thing on him before we move on to some other stuff. Does that represent a shift? Because I remember there's been times where he can't let up. He can't. He only knows how to play 1,000 miles an hour 100% of the time. Is that the wisening of someone who's been injured so much, or do you think this is are we reading too much into that?
Oh, I think absolutely. How many times have the Twins told him, don't take any chances? How tempting must it be to, wrap him in bubble wrap and wait out the month and just have him do drills until that day. He knows, he knows it's a dangerous business sometimes. Especially the way he plays, and I think the lectures have sunk in. I do think he expects to play differently and take a lot more chances once the season starts.
Now, interestingly enough, as he prepared to play his first game, the Twins made a trade for a good outfielder, Manuel Margot. They were looking for a right-handed kind of corner outfielder. He can probably play a lot of different positions, so it wasn't like this is your Byron Buxton insurance necessarily, but this was something they kind of had on their off-season to-do list and finally got done on Monday.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I thought that free agent prices were coming down a bit. We saw the Cody Bellinger deal, and maybe Michael A. Taylor's price would well, basically what the Twins wanted was another 1-year deal with Michael A. Taylor, and he's holding out for 2 years or more, which is certainly understandable in his 30s. So the Twins finally gave up on that and took a guy who's probably got another 1 or 2 years left of being really effective in the outfield. He's not as good as he was, but he's also kind of a thoughtful guy, a kind of a leader in the clubhouse, from what the Twins have been told and what we've been told. So he arrived in camp today. I mean, the trade was made yesterday afternoon, and he showed up today and actually asked Rocco if he's in the lineup, which that's pretty impressive. I think he impressed his teammates with that. I asked Byron Buxton if he warned him that you're not going to get to play much this year back in center, and he said no, he's glad to have him here. He did tell him that he remembered Margot had robbed him of a hit last year, and he told him, "I'm glad you're here, so you can't do that anymore." So
nice.
It's a good fit. We'll see. We'll see how quickly he's ready, but he sounds eager to get to work.
I saw our colleague Bobby Nightingale put on social media that the trade basically means that they don't have the five guys that they drafted at the top of the 2021 draft have all been dealt away now. It's just kind of just an oddity more than anything else. But I thought that was an interesting thing that Bobby tweeted out.
It is an oddity, and it's interesting. It was interesting to me that they got Margot and some cash to pay his salary for a guy that is a lot better fit on other teams than he is in Minnesota. He's a shortstop, and mostly, as it's been proven to be a good glove, more than a hitter. And the Twins are growing shortstops lately. I mean,
yes.
Carlos Correa is going to be here another 5 years at least, and Brooks Lee is a shortstop that they're going to have to move to bring him up there. It's hard to see how Noah Miller would have made the team in the next 2 or 3 years. Instead, they got a guy that can help.
Glad you mentioned Correa. That's a good segue into just overall camp health. I mean, we forget Buxton was a big injury story last year. Correa gutted it out, played a lot, but played through the painful plantar fasciitis in his feet. You had Royce Lewis miss a lot of time. I mean, those are three guys that, if they're healthy, even if two of them are healthy and the other one, misses some time but not, I mean, it's a big difference. You think about reasons for optimism, that is one, that if you can keep those guys healthy, and it sounds like Correa is pretty optimistic right now about where his health is at. Those guys could make a huge difference.
Yeah, those guys batted 2-3-4 today. Buxton, Correa, and Lewis, and that's how they very well may line up during the season. And you're right; they're all doing extra work to prove their health and stay that way. And they are all awfully optimistic about the season. Correa is candid about saying, that was not me last year. That was the worst year of his career at the plate. And so he seems determined to show that that's in the past, and that he's the player he always was this year. And we're just on the cusp of the Lewis era. It is amazing how many of Royce's jerseys you see in the stand. There was a time when they were all Buxton, and there were a lot more Correas last year. But boy, people are going out and buying some Royce Lewis jerseys, it seems.
When you hit home runs in your first 2 postseason at bats and end an 18-game losing streak, that I guess that has something to do with it, I would think.
Mr. Grand Slam too during the regular season. He was. I think he was third on the team, or maybe second in RBIs, and he only played half a year. So a lot to be excited about, and it has been an extraordinarily healthy camp thus far. I mean, the games have started now, so that could change, but it doesn't feel like I've written about injury news yet at all. And past few years, that we had a whole list of guys that check in and see how they're feeling now.
Royal Credit Union's smart checking accounts offer no monthly fees and no minimum balance. Enjoy financial freedom when you open your Royal Credit Union smart checking account online at rcu.org/go-checking. Insured by NCUA.
We'll see Pablo Lopez for the first time on Wednesday. By all accounts, he looks, sharp in what he's done so far. The pitching staff's kind of the question mark, at least from where I sit. You'd like to maybe see them add another high-end starter, but it doesn't seem like that's necessarily in the offing, especially after we hear Joe Pohlad say not spending a lot more money right now, not going after any of these guys that are kind of sitting out there right now, which is understandable, even if he didn't necessarily need to say that. What's your take on the pitching staff right now and where they are?
I would say that they have a lot of candidates for being really good, and it is the trick is to do it. Chris Paddock looked great in his couple weeks return last year, and they're counting on him. That's not a small deal. Bailey Ober, I thought Bailey Ober was on the verge of becoming a solid number 3 guy for 3 or 4 years now. This year, he's definitely got the opportunity right from the start, and we'll see if he can live up to that. You're right; they have lost, particularly Sonny Gray, who was just a sensational pitcher, maybe the best Twin starter since. I don't know if I would go back to Johan, but maybe Irvin Santana. He was terrific last year, and that's a big loss. Although I keep pointing out to people, the Twins weirdly had a losing record when Sonny Gray pitched, so they'll have to find someone else to take tough losses, I guess. But I feel like all the tools are there, and it's a matter of figuring out which ones you can stay with and which ones you don't. Louis Varland is this year's Bailey Ober, almost certain to start in the minor leagues and almost certain to be up by the end of April.
Seems like the final thing, seems like the general mood then is optimism. Everybody's happy in spring. It's February, right? They're down there and it's sunny, it's warm, but like it does feel like they go into this year in a different place because they did win the division last year. They got that whole postseason streak off the boards. Now there's kind of this wanting more, but there's also this feeling that they can do more, right?
I think they definitely feel that way. I mean, they only won 87 games last year, and so many of the new players cite the talent that they have on this team as reasons they're happy to be here and wanted to come here. I think the feeling in the clubhouse is definitely this is look at the talent around this room. We have enough to do it. It didn't hurt that the World Series last year was the Diamondbacks and the Rangers too. A couple of teams that made the playoffs in the last week of the season. The feeling is definitely there that they've got enough to get there, and they've got some high-end guys that could make a difference once they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Buxton's at the top of that list. Read Phil's coverage of Buxton's first game back. Star Tribune, startribune.com. I'm sure there'll be many more things written about Byron before the spring and the year is over. Phil, appreciate it as always, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, Mike. Good talking to you.
Appreciate Phil Miller's time as always. I always feel like we have to whisper about Byron Buxton's good health, right? Like you don't want to say it too loud because it's always subject to change, but it does seem like right now things are in a great place for him. You got to be happy for him. He's a good guy. He's a good person. He's a great talent. You want to see him succeed. You want to see him be able to play, to be able to give his best effort, to be able to play center field. Huge for the Twins, huge for Byron Buxton. Feels like they're in a great place right now. And again, always subject to change with him. But right now, again, you feel like you don't want to say it too loud, but right now it seems like they're in a really good spot with him. Seems like they're in a good spot with Carlos Correa. Seems like they're in a good spot with Royce Lewis. Things looking up in camp right now, at least on the offensive side. Like Phil and I talked about, still worried about the pitching a little bit, but that can sort itself out at some point. Not so worried about the offense anymore. I think that could be a strength of this year's team, especially if those guys stay healthy. Let's finish with the cooler. A couple of results from Tuesday night. The Wolves beat the Spurs. No Karl Anthony Towns as he mourned the death of a friend. Anthony Edwards had another injury scare. He seems like he has injury scares like once every 5 or 10 games, comes hobbling out of the game. But this game, like he does a lot of times, came back in, was able to finish out the game strong. They beat the Spurs 114-105. Kyle Anderson has a hamstring in this game. He's leaves the game with hamstring tightness. Starting to worry a little bit about these little injuries. Like Rudy Gobert came back in this game and played. He had missed a game with the ankle. Wolves have enough to withstand some of these little injuries. What you can't have at this point is a major injury. They've managed to avoid that largely for most of this season with their biggest and best players. So how does that look over the last 24 regular season games? By the way, they're 41-17 right now. 41-17, which means they are guaranteed to not have a losing season. I know that is not the goal right now. I know they are going to win way more than 41 games, but they have gotten to the point in the season where even if they lost their last 24 games, which they're not going to do, they would finish 41-41. That is a high watermark for this team to be, for this franchise to be, especially compared to where they have been in the past. The Wild, on the other hand, had a 2-1 lead against Carolina, lost 3-2. That's a game you want to have, right? It's a home game. It's a chance to keep ascending in these wild card standings. That they're in a tough spot. They put themselves in a tough spot. They're battling like 5 or 6 other teams for what will amount to one wild card spot. Essentially, it's a long shot anyway at this point. Even with how well they've been playing, can't drop those games at home. It's going to happen, but they just don't have much margin for error. They don't have much margin for error at all. So that one on Tuesday night hurts. So good result for the Wolves. Tough result for the Wild. That's kind of how it's gone this year, right? That's how these teams are. That's who these teams are this year. The Wolves have been the consistent dominant team. The Wild have been the up and down team. A departure certainly from past years. That will do it for me today. Like I said, plenty of stuff on Caitlin Clark on tomorrow's show, in addition to other things as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Michael Rand, back at it again on Thursday.